Welcome to Pondering Psalms. Today, Curt and I are going to be taking a look and pondering Psalm 127, and we're going to learn the best way to build a house. Hope you stick around. Well, I'm David Mullins. I'm here with my good friend right over there,
Curt Austin,
and we're going to be taking a look at Psalm 127.
Which is a fun one to talk about.
It is. It is. What did you find most fun about this one?
I really like the first few verses. I think it left me, two things. We had a Bible study on Philippians the other day, and we kind of left that with, it's important to, the takeaway was it's important to acknowledge the fact that you're working not for your own sake, but for the glory of God.
I think we need to start this over.
Okay.
Because we usually have a little bit more, I'm a little tired, and we usually have a little bit more connecting. I think you leave what you just said in. Don't, bring that back up again. But
okay.
It's just basically, well, here's Curt. Wow. Psalm 127. And then,
okay. So, I'm all right. I'm all right with that.
Oh, well, I'm here with my good friend. What?
Let's try it again.
Okay. Well, I'm here with my good friend, Curt Austin.
Welcome.
How you doing, Curt? I'm David Mullins, by the way, if you haven't figured that part out. How you doing, Curt?
Dave, it's Friday afternoon. It's been a heck of a couple of weeks.
It has been.
And I think you and I both are feeling it.
Yes.
So let's just be honest with that right up front. So if anybody's watching this and they feel like there's just a lack of pizzazz, the normal back and forth.
Yeah.
Repartee. Is that the word?
I have no idea. I don't speak German.
Schnitzel. There's not enough schnitzel in your show.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons.
I've been waking up early, and this morning I wake up early, and I always go look out our window, and I try to see if the stars are out. And this morning they were, and I thought, why don't I just get up? And so that always hits me about the time when we're doing the show. So
now, see, it was foggy here in Noblesville.
Really?
Yeah, we've had fog every morning for the last 3 days.
Okay.
So I don't know why, because it's bone dry. We've gotten no rain here for about 3 weeks, and it is dry as it can be. Now, people just like 2 blocks down there was flood warnings out in Noblesville, but for us, we've got nothing.
Wow. I did some research on why, about the fog and stuff, and it has something to do with the weather. So anyway, we're looking at Psalm 127. We're looking at Psalm 127 today. Curt, what's your initial thoughts on this?
I love the first couple of verses because I think it applies to our lives. It applies to other part of the Bible too. When you're reading the Bible and you're thinking about, because we did a Bible study this on Monday in Philippians, and the takeaway for Philippians chapter 2 was that we really are called to live for God. Everything we do is for that. And so when I was reading verses 1 and 2, it was like, what's the point of all of this if you aren't doing it? If God isn't a part of that, then you're really wasting your time.
Yeah.
And I love that. I just love that. I could live in those 2 verses, thankfully, for a couple of weeks, because that's what we did. We've lived in it for a couple of weeks.
Well, I think we're supposed to live in it all of our lives. Yeah. If you take it literally, because it's true. The question it asked that really kind of hit me was, I guess it's not a question. It says it's useless for you to work so hard from early morning until late at night. Oh
Mhm.
my gosh.
Mhm.
Is that convicting or what?
Yeah. Well, for you, it is because you're on call all the time.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And for me, I have the opportunity, and this is true, as opposed to everything else I say, this is true, that I've got an opportunity to work overtime on doing some transcript typing. So I could put in as much as I want because we have so many
Mm,
transcripts that need to be typed up, and I can do that. And I could bring in a bunch of money. I could double my salary, honestly, double my
wow.
salary by doing this. And then I read verse 2
Mm,
because it on and again, it's the timing was everything. That
yeah.
I got this opportunity 2 weeks ago, and then I read this the next day. I was like, "Oh no, what am I supposed to do? Not any of it, or
Yeah.
just a little bit of it?" But why am I working so hard? Well, I'm anxious. I'm anxious about retirement. I'm anxious
Yeah.
about vacation. I'm anxious
Yeah.
about, I mean, this boils it down to food you eat, but it's really s- the sustenance of your life. The things you need or think you need.
Yeah. And I don't want to really skip over verse 1.
No, not at all.
I kind of took us to verse 2,
Yes, you did.
but yeah, I know. I know. But the whole point is, like you said, if God isn't doing this, if you're not partnering with God and stuff, then it's wasted. It's God who protects a city, not the sentries. And we get so focused on our part in this partnership with God that we forget that God is with us. And if we are aligning ourselves with Him and His agenda and His will, that's what will make
Mhm.
all the difference.
So let's talk about verse 1 a little bit more.
Okay.
Just the first verse.
Because we
I don't think
certainly
this
don't
is
want to talk about the end of this psalm.
I don't get the end of this, but the verse 1, the first second. I don't think this is parallelism. I think this is where we've talked about that in the past, where it's
Yeah.
it's a restatement of. I think it's actually two truths that are being stated here. And the first is that unless the Lord builds the house, the workers, the work of the builders is wasted. And I guess this is what really touched my heart this week. We have, in Indiana, at least in this part of Indiana, there are new houses built every single day.
Oh yeah.
I mean, just crazy how many new developments are going up. The roads that used to be old farm roads are now 4 lanes wide and roundabouts everywhere because the traffic is so heavy. And you wonder how many homes uh, are filled with
Mm,
angst and grief and frustration and sadness and sorrow and heartbreak because the Lord is not building that home.
yeah.
The Lord is not present. Yeah, they've got they're $500,000 homes, but there's no value to them.
I love that. That's not it. I did not go there. That was not a thought that occurred to me, but yes, I love that. I
Yeah,
love that.
I've really, and I think part of it too is we've lived here for now 21 years in this house. And I think one of the things that we've been told repeatedly is that this is a really comfortable space. There's nothing flashy about our house. There's not one roof pitch that's equal to any other roof pitch in this house. We've got 3 different pitches, and none of the corners are square. And the builders didn't do an excellent job on this house, to be honest. However, really we've worked hard to make sure that the Lord has built this home for us
Yeah. Yeah.
over the course of the years, and it's not been easy. But thank God He's been present in the midst of that, and I think it reflects that effort.
And and when I think about the second part of that verse, we can spend a lot of time trying to find safety or security in our education, security, in our
Yeah,
job,
yeah,
security in our bank accounts. But we know that in a moment it can all be wiped away. And
yeah.
so, unless we are allowing God to protect us and run to Him for protection, all that stuff will not ultimately do any good at all.
Mhm.
So,
and then verse 2 makes complete sense
yeah,
in light of verse 1. That work is not what gets you
yeah,
the food you eat or the rest that you need.
yeah. The one verse that really, or the one part of this that really jumped out at me, was the very last line. God gives rest to his loved ones. And here we are talking about how tired we are. It,
That's
it, you know,
it's well, before we got online here, what did we talk about?
we've talked about a
Before
lot of stuff.
and again, a reminder, anybody that, the 2 or 3 of you who watch this, that we don't talk about these verses before we get into it.
Right.
But we do talk about the
Stuff.
cost of a guitar,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
the travel that we're going to do, or the conference that you're going to work, or the training that you're pursuing. It's all about Dave, oddly enough. I don't understand that.
No,
But we're talking about my health. We're talking about, and all of these things that could create anxiety. Not like, oh my gosh, I'm scared for my life, but just the focus. What's that focus?
yeah.
And here the psalmist is saying, what is your focus? Why don't you let God take care of your need? Why don't you let God give you rest? Boy, what a challenge. What a call.
It is. It is. I've been telling people, and I don't always do this. I'm not really good at doing it, but the times when I'm able to make sure that whatever's happening isn't about me, it seems like I'm always trying to make everything about me, and my.
I can vouch for that.
And when you get upset with someone, it's because they didn't do what you wanted them to do.
Right.
They didn't respond to you. When I can step outside of that and say, you know what, this isn't about me, and actually do things that I would rather not do, but not complain and grumble, but just say, you know what, this isn't about me.
Yeah.
There's a freedom and a rest. And I just have this sense, if I'm able to cultivate that into my whole life, that, you know what, this stuff is not about me. All of a sudden, there is a freedom and a releasing and a rest, because I know it's not about me. It is about God, and trying to really be aligned with God and God's purposes.
One of my favorite activities in any job I've ever been in is when I can act as a good second, a good support person. I love it when I can be a support person, because it actually then I'm focused on somebody else's needs and not on my own. And I love that when I have that opportunity. Let me say it differently. I love it when I take that opportunity.
Okay,
I always have that
That's
opportunity.
true. That's a good insight. Yeah.
But when I use that and I say, okay, this is really about serving that person's needs, not my own, then it's much better. I end the day rested as opposed to anxious.
Oh yeah. I think that's a good point that I'll lift up, because when it's about us, we do become very anxious, because things aren't the way we want them to be,
Right.
and people don't respond to us the way we want them to respond. They don't act the way we want them to act, and we're trying to make it happen, and we're trying to, even if it's very subtle, we're trying to manipulate the situation and the people and everything. And if you take that other stance and say, hey, it's not about me, it's really about God, and take your foot off the gas, all of a sudden there is this peace.
Yeah.
And you can just live and breathe.
The other day, Anita said, hey, so-and-so wants to come over next weekend for dinner. My initial thought was, oh crap, I like to have Saturday nights by myself. And then I was like, oh wait, I'm supposed to love others, and it'll be enjoyable to spend time with them. But I will say one of the things that's been really a struggle is, over the last year and a half, we spent so much time in isolation that it's really has become more about me, right? I mean, my time quiet. And so it's kind of interesting to kind of open up a little bit and say, okay, well, yeah, they could come over for dinner because we're all vaccinated and we'll be fine. Yeah. But it's breaking my routine that I'm used to of just, watching HBO Max for 6 straight hours.
And the funny thing is, you watch the same show. It's a half-hour show. You watch it over and over and over. So you want to get that dialogue.
No, I'm on season 7. So
okay. Oh well, good for you.
And then 3, 4, and 5. We can skip this. We don't.
Well, it's still part of it. And I from what I've read, this is very cultural. I mean, well, no, it's not. I mean, children are a gift from the Lord.
Some cultures don't see children as a gift from the Lord. That is clearly true.
But really, what the Scripture says is boys are a gift from the Lord. Males, and that's the part that's very cultural. And our translators have translated it in a way that we can hear what the psalmist was trying to say. But in the psalmist culture, the only help that you had was your sons. I mean, it's really that last line. He will not be put to shame when he confronts his accusers at the city gates. And I read someone said, there's nothing better that when people are accusing you, you show up at the gate with 6 strapping guys, because if you don't have anyone, you have no protection from stuff like this. And so really, they were talking about male children, are like arrows, and they talk about the arrows of justice, to help the father or the parents, navigate a lot of the challenges they had. And I think it goes with this psalm in some ways, because the very first part was talking about protection, unless the Lord protects the house. And then it basically says children are in some ways that protection, and they are a gift from God. And it is a blessing to have many that can really support you. And that's why, we had 4 kids, because I figured, each one has a chance to do something amazing. So, we're kind of trying to up the probability that at least one of them will be able to take care of us at some point.
Okay. I don't believe any of that, but there was a point, I will say there was a point where this was quoted frequently, that your quiver will be full. That was kind of a blessing I was a part of a church where that was kind of a mantra. It's kind of like, this is weird, and I'll tell you where it's really hard is if you, for whatever reason, you can't have children, and the Bible it's got several stories of women who couldn't have children. And of course, it's always blamed on the women. No one ever says the men were the problem, but science has proven that it can be either side of that, or it could be none of that. And you just don't have a child, right. And the number of people who adopt a child and then get pregnant right after that, that's legend. But, what do you do with this kind of a passage when you can't have children? And that's all of the prayer is, God, why have I been cursed? What is it about me that you won't honor this part of my heart? And we've, for years in church, whenever there is a baptism of children or a dedication of children, or Mother's Day, right? When you say, God bless all you mothers, there's a kind of a disclaimer of, and we know that there are people among us who would love to have children and they can't, and we pray for you as well. I don't know what you say about that. You're staying very mute.
Well, yeah, I was wanting to hear your full thoughts.
My full thoughts are that it's really hard, right?
Well,
this is really hard.
Yeah, but I think the statement, even the childish would say, childless would say that children are a gift from the Lord, and they probably know it even better than those that have children. Actually,
beautiful, yeah.
That they would know that it's a gift, and we don't know the whys of God's purpose and God's plan, but as you said in Scripture, there are several that were barren, and God did have a plan, a miraculous plan for some of them. But we really don't hear about those, that I think remain childless. All the ones in the Scripture that I can think of ended up having like Isaac or
Mm-hmm.
John the Baptist or Samuel. But we know even in that culture, there are those out there that did not have children, but it doesn't mean that they're not blessed of God.
I'll
At
tell
the
you,
same
we've
time.
got this is a timely. I've got a friend of mine who I've known for several years now, and she just couldn't have children. She'd had multiple miscarriages, and it was painful, this whole thing. And so they went through uh, in- and fertility treatments and everything they could think to do. And now she's getting ready to give birth to her third child, and it's like the whole thing turned around. And a beautiful family. We went black there. Beautiful family, beautiful young woman who's just wanted to just love children, and God has honored that in her life after much, much prayer
Yeah.
and a journey. Right? It wasn't something that just happened because God, miracle. But I think she probably does think that most of that is a miracle because of all this that they went through. But she will have had her third child by the time this airs, just like the week before. And so, it's pretty cool. So, uh, so
Yeah.
this passage is interesting. I think then if you take those last few verses, you don't have to put them back up, but if you take those last few verses and you tie those directly into the first two, it's trusting in God that fills your quiver.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's not a lack of trust that keeps it empty. It's
Right.
it's the fact that even if it is empty, it's the waiting and the prayers and the trust and the hope that gets you to where you need to be in that. Because you can have you can have a quiver full of stupid kids, to be honest. You're, doggone,
That's what my mom used to say.
these are the crookedest arrows I've ever seen in my life. Not one of them shoots straight. So it's not a quantity issue. It's quality, right? That matters.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and again, I think you have to take the cultural aspect.
Yeah.
In our current culture, our modern culture, we're probably having the fewest children of any culture,
Other than
because
China,
yeah, well, yeah,
I
because
mean,
you need a large family
well, and it
to
says that
survive.
it says that in the young man, right? I mean, you can't start at age 40 and have a bunch of them. It's not. It's just not the same, and you don't
Yeah,
need you don't need a dozen kids in a cul-de-sac. You- that was for baling hay and feeding
oh,
cows, and
I
I
see
mean,
what you're saying. Yeah,
so all of that was part of that was just this. We got to have a lot of kids because everybody's got to help each other.
yeah. And plus,
And
you also have to look at the mortality rate.
yeah,
I read in history,
yeah.
well, they had 15 kids and 8 survived.
I'm telling you, we had we went to Hopewell United Methodist Church, which is this little bitty church out in the middle of nowhere, and it was surrounded with a graveyard, and there were these little white stones in order. There were 8 of them,
Mm,
and they were children and didn't even live a year,
mm,
and it
yeah,
was all in one family, and it was always fascinating. It was in the 1800s. They were really
okay,
old stones, but it was always fascinating to see who died young and what families. And it's just the reality of the day. There was no
yeah.
antibiotics. There was no surgical care. It was a rough time.
Yeah.
So anyway, this is kind of an interesting conversation, but what's
Kind
the
of
big take?
a
What's the big
downer,
takeaway
man.
for
Kind of a downer.
what Psalm 127? What's the big takeaway for you?
For me, the big takeaway is, God gives rest to those he loves. No matter what place we find ourselves, if we can really align ourselves with him and trust, even when we don't understand, that is the path to rest. What about you? What's your takeaway?
I think the kind of that verse 1 as far as God being in the house, but I also think the definition of rest, it doesn't just mean that you get a good weekend,
Oh, no, not at all.
right? It's a
I,
lack of angst. It's
yeah,
a
it's a
place of
peace.
peace.
Yeah,
Ooh, there, see, right? Same
yeah,
thing.
we're right
It's
there.
a
Yeah,
it is a place of peace, and
yeah,
I think that's important to understand. And it goes back to even the quiver full or not. There's got to be peace there. You can certainly the biblical story of Jacob and all of his brothers, there's no doubt about it. That family was not in peace, and they had plenty of kids.
Yeah.
But they weren't focused on God. They were focused elsewhere, and I think that really left them into a place where they did not have trust. They did not have peace. So we should wrap this up before you fall asleep. You can barely keep your eyes open.
Oh, I can. I'm fine. I was just thinking that, hey, we should try to do this again next week.
Let's do.
Yeah.
Let's do. Let's do the next Psalm 128.
128. That sounds good. Let's do that. So I really appreciate you, my friend. And I'm so glad we can do this.
And everybody who wants to be a part of this, be a part of the conversation. Look, we've got Pondering Passages, the YouTube channel. We've got Facebook. We've got Instagram. We've got a podcast. We've got what else do we have? Blog. We've got the blog. We've got our website.
So many things.
Gosh, we are trending. When Dave and I click like, it just shoots it right up there. So be a part of the conversation. Follow us, like us, listen to us, and give us feedback. And tell us what you're thinking.
And our hope is that this helps you in your journey with God. I mean, really,
that's the bottom line.
Yeah.
It's helped us.
That's for sure.
We'd be a mess without it. So, all right. Well, come back and join us next week. We'll talk to you then. Thanks.
All right. There we go.
I am sick of this thing. I'm so tired of doing this.
I never want to do it again. 128. How many we have left? Once we get them all done, I'm done. I'm out of here.
Can we just I was thinking about that. It'll be fun to move on to some other book. When we get Pondering Psalms done,
we'll do Isaiah.
When we do Ecclesiastes, Numbers. We could move on.
And there were of the Issachar tribe, there were
what's this do for you, Dave?
3,243 in the tribe of